Hey everyone, it's me, and I'm a here bringing you my review for Akame no Ga Kiru, Episode 1. Now, before I begin this review, I would like to make a couple notes. Number one is, while I never got around to catching up, around roughly, I would say, around several months ago, around, I think September or October of last year, I did read the manga, never got around to catching up to it. I read roughly around 20 chapters. While I didn't get around to catching up, I really did enjoy it. And the reason why I'm making this note is that I might accidentally slip out a spoiler or two and forget to edit that out. So I apologize in advance for that if I end up spoiling you at all. Second thing is, not just for me, but especially for this second thing is for the people who are watching this review. Try and keep spoilers free for not just myself, but anyone who watches and wants to comment on this review. Now, I will if I see any comments, like always, that it's a spoilerish one, I will delete it without any hesitation. And if you do it multiple times, I might consider blocking you. But yeah, now let's get into the review. Now, alright, the basic gist of what happens in this episode is that we follow a guy named Tatsumi, and he will probably go down this season, at least at the start, for having the shittiest look out of any anime character. For starters, when we see him at first, the first thing that happens to him in the episode is that he just gets conned, right? It's just more so straight up from this woman that tries to get him into a military, I think it was. I won't lie, I kind of forgot, which isn't good for me as a reviewer, but yeah. She more so cons him and steals him out of all of his money. Then, while his luck picks up for a bit by on how he runs into more so this woman, and she decides to take him in, and the fact that we see her and her family are really nice, at least on the surface, which I'll get into, like, why I like some of the things like that, like, on how I'm going to try and connect it with the animation later down the line this review, yeah. And he basically, in fact, he even tells a story on how his luck is even worse than we thought, on how he and two of his friends left their village more so try and make their village wealthy and make a name for all three of themselves. As luck would have it, they got attacked by bandits, and all three of them got separated. And then we jump ahead a bit, and we find about the existence of an assassination group called Night Raid, on how they go after and more so important figures within the country, and we even find out with the country, things aren't all that it seems. Like, the Emperor's only a child, but yet things are really run by the Prime Minister, who's just running this country into a fucking hole. And then we go ahead later that night, and how Night Raid actually attacks the family where Tatsumi is staying at, and ends up killing the father and daughter. The mother and father. Then the daughter more so runs off to the storage area. Then this is when Tatsumi's luck just, like, essentially goes all the way from, throughout the episode, it was just going steadily down and down, then bam, all the way just straight down in the bottom. He ends up opening the storage door. I forgot who opened it for him. Yeah, I should have probably double checked this, but oh well. Someone opens the storage door for him and sees the fact that one of his friends is there, dead, completely naked, tortured, and and her body's just beyond recognition, just completely fucked up. And how one of the members of Night Raid says these were all done by this girl and her family on how her family's just essentially a bunch of sadists. Then the girl just more so denies it, and he turns to his left and sees the fact that his other friend's there. He's still barely alive, but he was also tortured, so we can confirm that fucking woman just tortured her to death, tortured their friend to death, and this ends up pissing Tatsumi so much, he ends up just murdering her straight up. So yeah, that's probably the worst summary of the episode. I think anyone will give for Akame no Ga Kiru. I really probably should have double checked this. But yeah. And basically the episode ends with Night Raid more so taking in Tatsumi. And one thing, and that's basically it. Fuck, I'll re-record that part. Now what basically goes down in this episode is that we follow a guy named Tatsumi, and he will probably go down as having the worst luck of any anime character, at least so far, for the summer season. Seriously, only one time this guy catches a break in the episode, and yet that just officially leads down into his luck becoming even worse. But I'll try my best not to harp on Tatsumi's luck, even though I think it's some easily shots fired. Yeah. The more so basic premise of this episode involving Tatsumi is the fact that he is more so out and about in the world to try and make a name for himself and try to get rich. And his luck starts going downhill when he meets this one woman that more so, I believe, I know this is kind of bad for me, but tries to get him into a military thing, and instead she ends up calling him out of his money, stealing it straight up from him. And his luck is now plummeted so hard to where now he's actually having to sleep in the streets. But it goes up for a bit on how he ends up running to this woman who decides to take him in and have him live with her and her family. And we see the fact that, hey, her family's actually is pretty nice. They seem well-mannered. They are willing to take care of Tatsumi, at least until he can get some money. Then we even find out that about Tatsumi and why he's more so trying to make a name for himself is the fact that he and two of his friends leave their village in order to more so make a name for themselves and make money for their village, due to the fact that their village is suffering in poverty. And that's basically what happened. And we find out the fact that him and his friends got separated after a bandit attack, and we basically know the gist on how he ends up the way he is now, more so broke. As I mentioned earlier, he got conned out of his money. And then we go and see the following day on how he finds out about a group called Night Raid, and this group is more so a group of assassins that goes around assassinating important political figures around the capital mainly. And in fact, we even get a little more into this country, like a little more insight into what's really going on how the emperor is actually a 9-year-old boy, and the real ruler of this country is the prime minister, and how he's just running this country straight into the ground. It seems like he gives no fucks about the more so residents of the country's life. He just gives no fucks, it seems. And things take a tone for the worse later that night on how Night Raid actually invades the family where Tatsumi is staying at, and how we just even see on how the mother gets straight up murdered by one of the members of Night Raid, on how she just gets straight up cut in half. Then, as luck would have it, the father ends up getting murdered as well. Then one of the guards takes the daughter out to the storage. Then she gets ambushed by Akame, a member of Night Raid and the series' title character, and she's about eliminated, and she's more so about to kill her. But then Tatsumi intervenes, tries to protect her. However, he ends up discovering the truth when Akame and one of the other members of Night Raid talks into him on how what's actually in that storage room. The door ends up opening, and he ends up seeing the fact that one of his friends is just there, tortured and completely dead. And he's shocked by all this, and how the members of Night Raid reveal to him that this family has been torturing people. They probably took your friends in and just straight up tortured them. They drugged them, and they tortured them for probably days. And then the fact that he even sees the fact that one of his other friends is still alive, barely, and he was tortured as well, and he confirmed that it was the daughter was the one who tortured their friend to death, and she enjoyed every second of torturing her, and then the fact that we find out the fact that his other friend has been poisoned to the point to where he's beyond saving and he dies within the next few seconds. This enrages Tatsumi so much he just straight up murders the daughter that tortured both of them, and the morsel episode ends off with one of the members of Night Raid being like, hey, let's just take him in, and they morsel just basically kidnap him and state like, yeah, you're a member of Night Raid now. Now, judging by the preview of the next episode, it does look like we're going to go into the second chapter of the manga, which I'm pretty sure this episode covered the entirety of the first chapter on how we're going to mainly get introduced to the members of Night Raid. Like, find out what they're all like, their personalities, and, I'm forgetting like what these weapons they call their units, but they're a special form of weapons. I'm forgetting their name. I think we're going to find out about them in the next episode, or at least within the following ones, which they're definitely like an interesting form of weapons, and they are pretty damn cool. I would say a good portion of them are. And yeah, that's basically what looks like will happen within the next episode. And now, onto the animation, because to me, the animation was the highlight of the episode. As we see the fact that I like how lively and peaceful the more so, at least capital of Akame no Ga Kiru's world is. And yet, this blends in well with the animation on how it actually looks colorful, beautiful, and looks pretty damn peaceful, at least on the surface. In fact, kind of reminds me a bit of Hunter x Hunter, in a sense, because I get a bit of Hunter. The series animation gives me some Hunter x Hunter 2011 vibes on how, as I said, it looks colorful, beautiful, and peaceful, but yet on the surface, it is really violent and a messed up world. More so on both ends for Akame no Ga Kiru than Hunter x Hunter. That to me is so far been that was the main highlight for the episode for me, was the animation. And what else was there? Oh yeah, more so the opening and endings. The visuals for the opening is really damn good, but personally, this is just me. This will probably be the opposite for you, or the exact same thing for me. I prefer the visuals of the opening, but I prefer the song of the ending, which you'll be hearing them both like back to back throughout this review, because that was the best I could find on YouTube, was just both the openings and endings tied together in one video. So yeah, overall, the episode was a really good episode. It mainly gave us introduction to the main character Tatsumi, and this shows the fact that this is going to be a bit of a tip for anyone who really wants to get into the series. Don't get emotionally attached to anyone. Just don't. Trust me, everyone is practically already walking dead, and yeah, I have my family just realized. So that will probably get. So if you heard like any weird noises, like loud noises in the background, that was probably that within the last like entirety of this review. Sorry about that. But yeah, as I was saying, don't get emotionally attached to anyone. Trust me, it's best you don't, because, at least too attached, because this series has a habit of a lot of its characters dropping dead like flies. It really does. Like, fuck, there's probably as much dead characters in this series as much as there are dead flies in my window, which I don't think I can actually move my webcam enough to show you. So, yeah. It's still enjoyable, the characters, but don't get too attached to any of them, because none of them are really safe. But yeah, the main focus of this episode was to mainly introduce us to Night Raid and Tatsumi, and to me the main standout for this episode was the animation, due to the fact that I like mainly how vibrant the colors looked and how just peaceful the animation looked in my eyes, and yet when you analyze Akame no Ga Kiru's world, which you don't really actually need to analyze it, when you more so see what more and more the world's like, the more and more how it could be very misleading, which I tend to like a lot of that things a lot. But yeah, overall, this was a really good episode. What did you guys think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you somewhere in the middle? If you guys like this video, leave a like. If you dislike it, leave a dislike. And yeah, anyways, I'm Akame Nerd, signing out. Peace.